You guys are going to love this episode of Calls. I got the band back together. Jimmy Mackin and I got together and went through 12 amazing websites. We talked about how to build a website that actually builds your business, how to build a website that gets leads, conversions, sales, home pages, about pages. It's a great episode. You're going to get to hear the opening. I think we go about 15 or 17 minutes here on just our ideologies about what make a website great. But you're going to hit a point where you're going to want to head over to our Facebook page or YouTube channel to watch the rest, because we did a ton of screen share, a ton of kind of going to the actual websites, scrolling through them. There's so much gold in this episode. So you can listen. You can also watch, which I highly recommend. Welcome to Calls.
What I want to talk about on today's call is the state of marketing, the power of focus, Facebook advertising, the best 3 sales questions, video marketing, the importance of faces.
This call is being recorded.
All right, feels great to be back on the air, guys. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got an awesome session lined up for you guys. Yeah, cheers. There it is. We got a session lined up for you today. 12 websites worth copying. As always, Chris and I are excited about bringing you guys a jam-packed session with a ton of takeaways, a ton of ideas. You guys are going to leave with pages and pages of notes. And the reason we're talking about websites today is because most real estate agents right now, even in 2018, they treat their websites like glorified business cards. And they don't really invest a lot of energy and effort into them. They typically download some type of template, maybe add their logo, add some graphics. That's sort of the extent of it. Now, if you're in a competitive market and you're losing out on deals to less talented, less experienced agents, it's because you're not getting in front of the consumer early enough in the process, and you're not compelling them to actually want to hire you. Most marketers make the mistake thinking the website is just simply a marketing tool, but we at Curaytor know that your website is your best salesperson. So we couldn't be more excited to talk about how to improve your website to help you sell more. My name is Jimmy Mackin. I'm the co-founder of Curaytor. I'm joined by my main man, best-selling author of the conversion code, Chris Smith. Chris, welcome to the call today, buddy.
What's up, Jimmy? I'm excited to be here. Thank everybody for tuning in. If you're on Facebook Live, give us a thumbs up. Let us know in a comment where you're tuning in from. We want to make sure that the audio and the video is working properly. I got a new setup, Jimmy. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah,
but
I see it.
I got a new setup. I'm loving it. But let me tell you why websites matter. Because the best leads come from your website. Mm-hmm. But websites matter because every lead is an internet lead. I don't care if you generate a Brian Buffini referral. They're going to go to Google. They're going to put your website in. And what I've found researching websites now for 5 to 10 years is that there's 2 kinds of sites, Jimmy. Very simple. There are sites that earn you more business and sites that push business away. You either attract business through your site or you repel business because your website sucks. So the first pop quiz I want everyone to do, and I challenge people to do this at the seminars that I do, go to your website, go to your about page, go to your testimonials page, go to your sales page, go to your home page, go to the pages we're going to cover today, and ask yourself one simple question. If I didn't know me, if I was a stranger, if I didn't know how great I was, would I hire myself based on just my website? And if the answer is no, Jimmy, I want people laying in bed tonight letting that bother them. I want them to wake up tomorrow morning letting it bother them, because our goal today is to teach people how to get more business from their website. But I just feel bad of all the people that are actually pushing business away.
Yeah. Let me get your reaction to something real quickly here before we get into today's agenda. Why do you feel, because I think people conceptually understand what you just said there. They understand the importance of a website. They understand that they're losing business because their website isn't, up to where it really needs to be. Why do you feel like most people either don't make the time or don't invest their resources in website design, in website optimization?
I'm going to tell people the number one thing that they have to change. It's a mindset shift, Jimmy. The reason is because most people think of their websites as a noun, and we think of a website as a verb. So people think of, oh, I got a website. No, you get a website and then you use a website.
Yeah.
You don't have a website. You have a website and you use the website. So I would say, as soon as you can think of your site like a verb instead of like a noun, like you said, most websites are just a business card up on the internet. And, your business card doesn't change that often either. I've seen them. You guys don't like changing those pictures on those business cards. So your website has to be an ecosystem. It has to be a platform where there's new content. Jimmy, here's a good example, because a lot of people watching, they know Zillow. Let me tell you how quickly Zillow's traffic would plummet if they stopped adding new content. If right now they didn't get another new listing for the next 3 months, and they didn't publish another listicle about celebrity homes, right? If Zillow stopped adding stuff to their site, it would go away pretty quickly. So just think of it that way. Now, in real estate, you have the benefit that you automatically have listings going to your site. And that's why we're not going to cover that today, Jimmy, because listings are a commodity. The other stuff that is what makes you special.
Yeah, I love that. And it's actually indicative of when you look at Curaytor.com, we change our website. It feels like almost daily, making small changes. And it's not something that sort of drains us, something that we're excited about doing. So guys, today we're going to walk through 12 pages worth copying. We're going to go through the home page, the about page, the reviews page, and finally a sales page, which surprisingly many people still don't have on their real estate websites. We're going to give you 12 examples, both in our industry and outside of our industry. But before we do that, I want to take the opportunity, Chris, and lay the groundwork here for some design principles that people should adhere to when they're thinking about designing these 4 core money pages and any sort of subsequent page there on after. Now, I put together sort of a brief deck for you guys here to kind of walk through, and let me see if I can do some screen sharing live on the air, and we'll hope the technology hangs with us here.
While you pull that up, I just wanted to say how nice your beard looks.
Thank you, buddy. We got like an Indian summer here for the winter in Boston, but it's going to get cold at some point. We know it.
I can see your screen, Jimmy, so you're good.
Cool. Chris, let's start off with the first design principle. It's something you talked about in the conversion code in terms of how consumers sort of perceive design and how important it is. So just talk a little bit about why great design matters from a consumer's perspective.
Well, because the consumer's looking at your stuff without you there with them, and ultimately design matters more. And I'm talking about cold traffic, people that don't know you. Design matters way more than content and copy. Like if you want them to read the words, they have to like what they see. There was a study done and they were looking for distrust. Like when you don't trust a website, why? Yep. And 93% of the time when they distrusted a website, it was the design and the style. Only 7%, they said, oh, I don't believe the words. So design is king if you want the content to be king. Yeah. And that's where a lot of people fail. Like like it's not impressive. It's not beautiful. Like one of the challenges I was given was go to your website and kind of like the other one, would you hire yourself? This one's a little bit, let's say, yes, you would hire yourself. The next test is how much do you think your shit costs? What would people guess your average price point for your product or service is if they just looked at your site? And a good example of that is go to Tiffany and Company. Pull up their website. You're going to feel your wallet getting heavier while you're there. That's something I think what we notice a lot, Jimmy, is the people that have sold 300 homes a year or the people that are selling the $1 million homes, they don't look that much different than the people that just got a free website from their company.
Yeah. It's such an important point. I love that stat you just gave. 93% of consumers trust you, not your website, your brand, what you sell based on the design of your website, which goes perfectly into point number 2, which is how do we define great design? Now, Google did a study of this. They analyzed over 100,000 websites, identifying the characteristics of a great design. Here's what they found. They found there's 2 things that consumers relate to when it comes to great design. The first is the complexity of the website. How many different choices, how many different options, how many different things can they do on the website when they land there? And as you could imagine, when a site is low in complexity, easy to understand, people inherently think it has a better design. And as Chris just said, better design equals more trust. And we're in the business of trust. The second thing that Google found out through the study of over 100,000 websites is something called familiarity, which is this basic idea that if you are in real estate, making your website look and feel similar to what they're already accustomed to doing is a very important factor when it comes to how people judge your design. So low complexity, easy to use, easy to understand, not overloading the consumer with too many graphics, too many images, too much text, too many calls to action. And familiarity, which is the idea of having a basic structure that emulates what people are already accustomed to. So as an example, Chris, if you're on a mobile device, we had the temptation in design to add some type of new fancy widget to sort of show what a menu can do. But everyone's used to what, Chris, on mobile? The hamburger? That's it. Yeah. So that's a kind of an example of that. So Chris, you just mentioned Tiffany's here for a second. What are the things that sites like Tiffany's, what are they what's in their toolbox? So you say it looks and feels like an expensive website. Why?
Well, part of it, you mentioned it. I wanted to ask the audience on Facebook. Let us know right now. Two quick questions. What is the name of the font you're using on your website? If you don't know, just say, I don't know the font name. Number two, I want to know how many of you guys know what a hex code is? Do you know the hex code of the color of your brand? That's what Jimmy's talking about here, fonts. There are certain fonts that sort of exude luxury. There are certain fonts that a little bit more so exude lifestyle. Certain fonts that look a little techie. Jimmy, I don't know if you can hop out of the deck, but pull up your wife's website if you don't mind. This is a boutique yoga studio in Boston. So show that for a second, Jimmy. You have to take over for it to pull up big on the screen.
Gotcha. Okay.
But, yeah, you just have to talk through it. But talk through a couple of the pages so they can see the fonts and the colors.
Yeah, what we decided to use here, I believe, was a Merriweather font. And what you can notice is, again, they're a yoga studio that is about love and about lifestyle. So using a traditional, Roboto font or using something maybe even a serif, it would feel too professional, too corporate. So as you can see here, one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to be, a little bit whimsical, a little bit more appealing to, let's say, a feminine brand, which is their brand. And, everything from the color, as Chris was just talking about, everything from the colors, the fonts, the language that they are using on their website really reinforces what their brand really stands for. If you were to, and a good example of this, if you go to you have the ability, Chris, to some applications, some Chrome add-ons, you can sort of download an extension that can change the font of a website, and you can just sort of see what it looks like. And a really interesting one, if you go to let's say Marines.com, right? The United States Marine Corps, and you go to the website and they have a traditional font, a traditional sort of serif, it's very professional. And if you change their website to something like what you see here on Sweet Balance, it just changes the entire feel of the website. So one thing that jumps out to me as you were just sort of highlighting that, Chris, is that in the toolbox for designers, you have things like fonts and colors and images and calls to action, and all of these things working well together is really going to sort of emphasize what it is you're trying to convey. So if you're a luxury brand, you have to be conscious of that piece of it. No, I love that, Chris.
Cool. Well, let's keep rapid firing through these principles, and then we're going to get into 12 examples across 12 different websites that we think are ideas worth copying. By the way, Jimmy, I don't know if the audience noticed it, but on the website, was that high yoga? Were they doing high yoga?
I don't think so. I hope not.
If you guys go back, I think it was more of the.
She's been spending a lot of time at the studio. I don't know. She's got to answer the questions.
She comes home hungry.
So number 3 here, Chris, I want you to talk a little bit about this because this is a good example, Chris, of the fact that in design, there are sort of conventional principles that oftentimes get disproven as technology evolves. Right now, 66% of all the time on the web is spent below the fold. What's a common mistake you think people make when you think about above the fold and below the fold in sort of 2018?
Well, I think a lot of people watching don't even know what that means. It's basically the point where you have to scroll or not. It's a tough thing, Jimmy. You want to be able to convey everything you do and what you are above the fold. Because even if 66% of people get below the fold, 100% of people get above the fold. So I'm really concerned with what they land on. That's another good thing you can do to your website. Don't go click around and scroll through your website. Go click around and don't scroll through your website. What if you could only see the pages without scrolling down? Because unfortunately, 36% of people, that's what they're going to do. Yeah. They're only going to see above the fold. this gets into one of my ideologies, Jimmy, that I teach, which is you have to optimize for the skimmer and the shopper, right? The above the fold is really for the skimmer. And we can start getting into the shopper below the fold and on some of the sub pages. But there is a fold. There is a fold on a phone, and there is a fold, and that came from the newspapers, by the way. Like if you got an article in the paper, you were hoping it was above the fold because that's the one that sits up on the newsstand. If your article was below the fold, it wouldn't get as much exposure. So good ideology for people to think about. What's the next one?
Yeah, sure. Next one is what just sort of reinforces what you just said, which is people skim, they don't read. And so knowing that, Chris, knowing that the percentage of people, the percentage of words that people are going to read on a page dramatically reduces with the more amount of words there are. What's your pro tip around this? Sort of leaning into the fact that you're not going to get someone to read 1,000, word blog post or sales page. So how do you sort of make sure the points are being conveyed in a way that actually helps you still sell if they're not going to read the whole thing?
Yeah, I think of it like a movie poster versus like a description of a movie. So if you go and look at like the poster for a movie, they're going to use words like mesmerizing, 5 stars, right? They're going to use simple like tweet length descriptions of the film. And then if those little short descriptions are actually really interesting, then I might flip the DVD over, right, and read the back. Yeah. So think of it as
you're aging yourself right now, by the way.
Yeah, well, listen, I still got DVDs around here somewhere, but it's kind of like this, Jimmy, right? Like here's my book. So we would never put a really long description like that, you know what I mean, on the front of the book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The front of the book is like capture leads, create appointments, close sales. So this is what most people really want to see as the skimmer. And then if they like it, boom. It's no different on a website, Jimmy. This is above the fold. This is below the fold.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. All right, last one here for you before we get into the 12 websites worth copying. Again, we're going to be covering the best home, about, reviews, and sales pages. Chris, I want you to talk for a moment about sort of what I refer to as bookending the website, because a lot of people, they sort of cut themselves short. And the way I would describe this, Chris, is like the same way that, when you end a sales call, people say, what do you think? Are you ready to do this? Right? I think people sort of do the equivalent of that on a website. Talk to me a little bit about the importance of actually bookending your website or a web page.
Yeah, there's number one, like, I don't know, you guys let me know. When you get lost on a website and you can't find something, to Jimmy's point, I scroll to the bottom because I know usually they've got the site navigation in the footer and they usually have the contact information in there too. So like, don't let your footer be an afterthought. But I think what Jimmy's getting at is if you got to the end of a sales pitch, you would close. If you get to the end of a sales page, you should close. You know what I mean, Jimmy? Like if I'm at the bottom of your homepage and there's nothing else, that bottom widget needs to be a call to action to go to a different page, to subscribe, to never miss an alert. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the last thing above the footer plus the footer are really important, and definitely people don't think about them enough.
Yeah, I love that, guys. And what we're saying here, something a Curaytor we coach is at the end of the page, you want them to do one or two things: click or convert. That's it. So keeping that in the back of your mind, you can start to look at these individual pages on your website and say, am I just sort of dropping off a cliff here, or am I getting them to click or convert? So we just
before you move on, I want to talk to that graphic because I teach audiences, right? We teach funnels. John and I are always working on funnels. So at the top is the magic million. In the middle is the chunky middle. At the bottom is the sweet spot. So like the magic million, the top part of your sales funnel is wider, but the leads aren't as good. Yeah. And then it gets better and better. So if I look at your graphic, Jimmy, it kind of is like 22% of people make it to the bottom.
Yeah.
Those are the 22% that are the most likely to buy. Yeah. Those are the 22% that are the most likely to become a customer, not the 100% that never scrolled. So it's weird to optimize the bottom, but those are the people ready to buy, or else they wouldn't be at the bottom. They would have bounced already.
It's a really interesting observation, and we're gonna get into some of the actual live website designs. But what you made me think about there, Chris, was if you had a form at the top of the page and you had a form at the bottom of the page, in between those two forms, you had a bunch of content and explain what it is you did and how it worked. It feels like the bottom of the page leads would be a much higher quality than the ones that simply just sort of plug something in because you had some clever copy. It's a really interesting point. Guys, this is going to be fun today because what Chris and I are going to be doing, Chris hasn't seen, I'm going to jump back to my face here for a second if I can. I want to set the stage here for a second. So Chris hasn't actually seen any of the web pages that I actually chose here for today's call. I'm going to get his sort of initial gut reaction. He's going to tell you what he likes about these pages, what he would do differently, and we're going to identify some really kind of key takeaways that we think you guys can apply to each and every one of these pages. So as we get into this, I want you guys to sort of get ready to take some notes here because we're going to walk away with a bunch of takeaways. And more specifically, as we're walking through this, I want you to kind of reference and look at your own website.
All right, so now you need to go to our YouTube channel, guys. Go right now, Curaytor TV, or just search Curaytor, Curaytor. We've got the video up on our channel, and we will walk you through each and every website. We do screen share so much that it really would be a bad audio experience. So I'm glad you listened to the beginning of this episode, but to watch the rest of this episode, head over to YouTube. Make sure you check out the rest of the websites and ideas worth copying on our YouTube channel. This has been a special episode of Calls.
Hey, this is Chris. Thanks for listening to my call. If you enjoyed the call, please subscribe right now. Also, share the episode and use the hashtag #CallsWithChris. Every week, I choose a few people randomly to win a free signed copy of the conversion code, my USA Today best-selling book. You can also visit Curaytor.com. That's Curaytor.com to learn more about my company, which is the one I'm running during these calls. We help small businesses grow faster, and we've been featured recently by Inc., Forbes, Fortune, and Entrepreneur Magazine.